This What's Working with Cam Marston podcast is brought to you courtesy of Michelob Ultra Beer.
They say consistency is the key to success. They weren't wrong. So how about grabbing a beer that's consistently smooth, consistently refreshing, and consistently light? You might just find that the road to success can be pretty enjoyable. Michelob Ultra, the perfect balance of taste and refreshment, and only 2.6 carbs and 95 calories. It's only worth it if you enjoy it. Enjoy responsibly. Anheuser-Busch Michelob Ultra Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. What's Working is the radio show / podcast that's designed to bring you insights and information into the workplace, the workforce, and the marketplace trends that are happening all around us. I try to find guests that can teach us a little bit about these trends in such a way that we can adopt what they're teaching us and apply them to our own business, our own world, our own family, our life, whatever it may be, just to make things just a little bit better. Again, welcome to the show, and I thank you for being along for the ride. It was about, I'm guessing, 5 or 6 weeks ago now that my phone rang, and I saw the name on the screen, and I thought, this can't be happening. This person's in Australia. I've never received a phone call from Australia before. This is something's wrong. This is some sort of fluke. And I answered the phone, and it was Scot Hunsaker. And indeed, it was from Australia. Scott's been on the show once before. Scott has an expertise based on his experience of transitioning a business, positioning a business to sell. And his comments on the show, we had him on, I'll have to dig it up when it was, were not about the pure financial components of it, though, of course, that's a great part of transitioning business is the financial stuff. Scott's comments on the show was more about how to transition leadership to the next generation or to the heir apparent, how to prepare them to take on the roles and the responsibilities of leadership. It was how to collect content, how to collect information unique to the organization such that when he left, he didn't leave with the secret sauce, if you will, to how to run their organization. It was a deliberate process of putting down what you know into some easily identifiable form so that the person that comes behind you can learn that quickly and apply it to the workplace. Well, Scott was in Australia, as I said before, and he had come across a number of people in his travels that had taught him something, not about the transition planning that he and I had discussed on the show, but about how to get ready for that final chapter of business and perhaps even that final chapter of life. His comment was, Cam, I am meeting people who have all said, I waited too long to transition out. They all define themselves as I'm going to die at my desk and I love my work too much. And what they all had in common was that they had waited too long. Scott didn't wait too long, as he'll tell us on this when I get him on the line here momentarily. He made the decisions to get out when he did. And though I think he got a payout at the end, he never told me what it was. It's none of my business. But he said it wasn't enough to live high on the hog. He's had to make some choices about what his retirement will look like and feel like. And one of the choices was an exploration of the world. And he will readily admit, he's not filthy rich. He had to make some choices. And I think what he's got for us today. So anyway, back to this call. Cam, I'm learning some stuff now that I'm here in Australia. I think they were gone for like 6 or 9 weeks to tour Australia, New Zealand, Tasmania, etc. He's now back. But I learned stuff, he said, that I think I wish I had known before. And he said, knowing who your audience is, remembering who your audience is, I think there's a message I'd like to give there. I've learned something and I want other people to learn it more quickly than what it took me to learn. And it's largely about when to step out, when, at what age, and what your health needs to be to enjoy that final chapter. There are people that say, I will die at my desk. I love my work. I'll die at my desk. My suspicion is most of those people are afraid of their identity without their work. In fact, I read a big, long social media post from a guy up in Vancouver. I don't know who he is, but he reported about the quick decline of his father as his father left the family business and had always said, I can't wait to retire, but retirement came and he didn't know what to do and he declined so quickly after that. Scot Hunsaker will be my guest when we come back from break. You're listening to What's Working. Again, glad you're on for the ride. This one's going to be good. Be right back.
This is Trey Langus with Transworld Business Advisors. I help business owners sell their businesses from mom and pop size to large mergers and acquisitions. We have a huge buyer database looking for quality businesses to buy right now. Confidentiality guaranteed. If you're a business owner considering an exit within the next few years, let's talk. Again, I'm Trey Langus. Find me at Transworld Business Advisors or Google my name.
Scot Hunsaker is on the line with me. We're actually doing a Zoom call. You can see highlights of this conversation on my website and on my social media page. Scott's just back from Australia. I told you a little bit about that in the opening comments, but even before that, he had a heck of a trip up the eastern seaboard, and we'll talk about that. Scott, first, thank you so much for your phone call from Australia. I appreciate talking to you again. Welcome back to What's Working.
Yeah, thanks, Cam. Glad to be here. Yeah, I was thinking about you and just wanted to reach out and say hi and see how things were going for you. And I had some thoughts while I was traveling and wanted to bounce them off of you and see if they had any value.
I am very interested in those thoughts. What you told me on the phone was very compelling stuff. I'm eager to get into that. When you and I were together last, it was coming up on a year ago, and it was in Florida at a conference. And once the conference was over, you got on your boat and headed up the eastern seaboard through the Intracoastal Canal for weeks or months. Tell me a little bit about that, and then I want to get into the stuff that you and I spoke about on the phone.
Well, we were on the back half of our trip, what turned out to be our trip that year. So we got on the boat in August of 2020, and I think you and I met last, was it May, I think, of 2022?
Yeah, April, May, something like that.
So the first year, we went from Key West all the way up to Bar Harbor, Maine. Canada was closed down because of COVID. And we turned around, came back to Key West, spent the summer or the winter there, then went over to the Bahamas. And coming back from the Bahamas is when you and I saw each other.
Right.
And then last year, Sue and I went north up to Bar Harbor again. And this time Canada was open. So we crossed over to Nova Scotia up to the St. Lawrence Seaway. And came down the St. Louis Seaway through Quebec City, Montreal, and then came around, and the boat is now in Chicago. So in the last 2 years, we've been underway 245 days. We've put a little over around 1,300 hours on the engines and about 20,000 miles. And it's been quite the trip and journey, and we've loved every second of it, or almost every second of it. There was one or two bumps, but it was a once-in-a-lifetime trip and an amazing one, and we greatly enjoyed it. And I'd love to see your listeners find out what their goals and objectives are and passions, and to make it a priority for them so they have an opportunity to kind of check that box and look back and say, got it done.
Well, what facilitated this, if I recall your story correctly, was the sale of your business. You were last on the show to talk about how to essentially transfer the wisdom to the next generation of leaders, how to prepare your business for transfer. And it was a great show. It followed a great speech that I heard from you down there in Florida. The sale of the business predicated all of this. And I want the listeners to know immediately that, yes, you did a good job building and selling the business. However, it was not a $10 billion windfall that you received when you sold the business. That there was you worked hard, you earned some rewards for it. But even after that, there were decisions that you had to make. The world was not your oyster. You had to prioritize. And I think that's kind of the bulk of what I want to get into right now is There are people out there who are in positions to step into retirement, who are perhaps working on the sale of their own business. Talk to me about the sale of yours and a little bit of the decisions you had to make that immediately followed that.
Okay. So first of all, this was always kind of my dream.
Yeah.
And so I had been planning for it both from a skill point of view and a financial point of view for 20, 30 years of my life. And just to put what I think you're alluding to there, our boat is very beautiful. It's perfect for us. My wife and I run it ourselves. We don't have a crew. It's 66 feet long. We're very fortunate, but we've been around those people that maybe you were alluding to that have a crew of 7 and a 100-foot boat, and we're the tender.
Right.
But it's a community, and we all each have each other's back. So in answer to your question, when we started on this journey, we kind of looked at what our cash burn was. And that's what you do when you retire. You got to figure out what are your costs to live, and do I have the resources to be able to fund those costs? And what was interesting is when we started doing our financial planning, what it costs to run the boat and what it costs to run a 3,000 square foot home in a nice suburb with 2 kids and 2 cars and all that stuff with the landscaping and things was about the same. Now, we could afford to do one or the other. We couldn't afford to do both. So we made the decision in COVID land of selling everything we own, including the house, the car, all our stuff, and moved on to the boat. And that was a big decision. And, it was really scary. And we had some tough times going through that process as a couple. But it was also freeing. Once you got on the boat and you didn't have all this stuff and you realized you didn't need all that stuff, it was quite liberating for us. I don't know about your listeners, but we've moved our parents 2 or 3 times, and I've moved the same box unopened 2 or 3 times. And so the idea of not leaving that for our kids was, we hope, a little bit of a gift. So did that answer what you were looking for from the financial piece?
Yeah, you couldn't do both. And I don't want the listeners to think he's got a 60-foot boat. He's got a house in St. Louis where he lives. He keeps a place in the Bahamas. He keeps a place in the Rockies where he skis. You had to make some decisions.
I'm not opposed to that, but that's not me.
But it wasn't in your cards.
We had to prioritize.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. I will tell you something, a little nugget. So when we were getting ready to do this, I did all my financial planning, and, I shared it with my wife, but we also took it to our financial planner. And I said, hey, look at my numbers and see what you think and make sure, I'm not looking through rose-colored glasses.
Yeah.
And we came together, and he said, Scott, I've looked at all your stuff. It makes sense to me. I think you should do it.
Yeah.
Now, we're pulling a lot of money out of his little bucket to play with.
Right.
And his point was, he goes, all of our clients talk about it, but very few of them do it.
Yeah.
He goes, our bigger problem we see is people 80 years old not being able to spend their money because they don't have the health to be able to do it.
And that's
I think it's great.
Keep going, Scott.
I was going to say, I think that's one of the gifts of this journey, and one of the nuggets I'm trying to pass along to your listeners, that, it's important to make yourself a priority in this journey. Because so often during our journey as business leaders, we're taking care of others. We're taking care of our employees. We're taking care of our families. We're taking care of our customers. But I would encourage all of us to take a moment and take care of ourselves. And it's been a wonderful journey for me and my wife. We've become a lot closer, and it's been a great trip.
You've got a note here that you sent me in advance, how quickly the phone stopped ringing. I'm assuming that's a reference to you thought your customers couldn't live without you. You were on top of mind for them, and then it just stopped.
That is exactly what that note is. And I was surprised. I mean, I was in the engineering business, and I thought I had some really close relationships with architects. I'd been to their homes and stuff. I probably had done 800 projects. I would argue I knew a couple hundred architects. And today I only keep in touch with 2 out of all those. And once I realized that I couldn't be their go-to person, it wasn't they were being mean.
Right.
It just, I was no longer a priority. And the reason I'm bringing this up is when I work with my clients, a lot of times I hear the pushback about making yourself a priority is, well, I have to be there for my clients. And the lesson I learned, and it was a big surprise to me, was that my clients will be just fine.
Yeah.
Particularly in my case, I left my leadership team being able to carry on the legacy of the organization and grow. And now we've done it about 20 other times with my clients. And it surprises me how quickly you can step out in an honorable and thoughtful way without feeling like you're leaving somebody hanging.
So you mentioned your business today. It's no longer the engineering business. Tell the listeners about the Ardent Group. We'll get into that continuously as we go along.
Yeah. So as you may remember, when we were together last year, I really talked about what are our choices as an owner. And you can either sell to a third party. If you sell to a third party, you might lose your employees. You might lose your customer. You might lose your legacy. And for me, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to hand it off to the next leadership team so they could continue the journey. So during my career, I developed a leadership team and transferred that institutional knowledge and business savvy. So they had the confidence in themselves to be able to push all their money in and bet they had what it took to carry that legacy forward. That was my liquidity event, so I could go do this. But it was also their ability to carry it into the future. I still talk to them. Matter of fact, I've had a couple of them on the boat, and they're rocking. They're doing really well. They're doing really great. So since I sold the company when I was 49 years old in 2013, and so I had a 7-year gap because my kids were still in the house. It was always my plan to do it. It just happened 7 years too early. So, early, maybe not too early. And so that's how Ardent got born, is that I started working with some of those architects and teaching them because they said, Scott, I'm 10 years older than you. I haven't even started. How do I do it?
Yeah. Yeah. Was 49 too early? You sold the business at 49. Looking back, do you think, the business sense says 49 was the right time. The environment of the business may have been the right time. But maybe with the age of your kids and everything that's gone on since, you could have said, 55 would have probably been a better number for me.
Well, 57 was my goal. That was my plan. But the team came to me and they said, Scott, we're ready if you are.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I was talking on a boat one night, and I'll tell you, because this is, I think, humorous, but it's also really real, too. You can any problem on a boat dock at 2 a.m. because on a boat dock at 2 a.m, you got doctors, you got lawyers, you got farmers, you can rebuild an engine, you can talk about anything. So after a couple of wines, we were sitting talking about this. I said, hey, my team has come to me and made this opportunity available. And one of my friends, his name's Ed, and he owns an accounting firm. He said, Scott, it's been my experience. There's no better time to sell a company than when somebody wants to buy it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now that may sound a little flip and a little jokey, but there's something really meant to that because
Scott, I got to interrupt you. We're moving to break. I want to hear more about this when we come back from commercial. I'm on the line with Scot Hunsaker. He's with Ardent Group, ARDENT Group.com. You're listening to What's Working. We'll be right back.
You're in business to make money. At United Bank, we're in business to help you manage it. We offer a full line of financial solutions including business credit cards, business checking, merchant services, and more. We'll work with you to create a bundle of services that fits your business needs. Learn more about how we can help your business grow at unitedbank.com/CAM. Member FDIC. Credit card subject to credit approval.
Customer service never goes out of style. In fact, I think it's safe to say that customer service is more valuable and more important now more than ever. Hi, this is Cam Marston. One thing that my over 200 episodes of What's Working has taught me is how important customer service is to building and maintaining a thriving business. It's the growing need for customer service that's led me to partner with one of the state's leading customer service trainers to create our program called Delivering 5-Star Customer Service. Your team will get one 90-minute training session per month for 6 consecutive months. Each session builds on the skills learned the previous month, allowing your customer-facing teams to practice before moving on to the next lesson. And the 6 lessons address everything from appearance to electronic communications to conflict resolution to maintaining a service mindset. Our program travels and is delivered in person at your workplace, nothing virtual. You simply can't practice the level of the skills this course teaches virtually. For more information, email me, cam@cammarston.com, and let's schedule a time to talk. Remember, you have less to fear from outside competition than you do from discourtesy and bad service from inside your own company. Again, email me, cam@cammarston.com, and let's talk about your business. Scot Hunsaker is talking to me from a VRBO in the St. Louis area, I think, Scott. He sold his house, bought a boat when he retired, and he spent a long time on the road, on the water, and then on the road down in Australia and New Zealand, where I followed him on social media. And he's got some lessons for those of us who perhaps are worried about working too late, too long. Scott, prior to the break, you were telling me that the best time to sell a company is when someone wants to buy it. Please continue.
So think about the number of people that were thinking of selling their company in 2008, 2009, and then you think about COVID and all this, and people having to hang around 3 or 4 more years because there was nobody there. So that little comment, I think, was pure wisdom. Yes, it was a little funny, but it was pure wisdom. The next, and this goes back to your earlier comment about cash flow, was how much is enough?
Yeah.
And one of the doctors on the dock said, Scott, you'll never have enough, but you'll always have plenty.
Yeah.
And to me, that was also really important because there's always going to be somebody with more money. There's been more than once when I've turned to a dear friend and we've been on one of these journeys and I said, hey, Mike, I can't keep up with you. I love you to death. I'd love to do what you're doing, but I can't keep up with you. And that's okay. Because, you got to find your comfort spot, live within your means, don't put yourself at risk, but enjoy life to the best of your ability and do what you want to do.
Yeah. I heard a story. I'll never forget it. I was a guest at a conference down at Ocean Reef Club, the Ocean Reef Club. I bet you've been to this place down there
I've
in
been
Key
there
Largo.
a couple times. You bet.
I was given a conference and he owned a alcohol distributor in Chicago and in Las Vegas. And he was like 3rd generation. Anyway, I'm on his boat and it's 160 feet. It's got the 7 crew member. It's huge and it's beautiful. And I've never seen wealth like this that close. And I'm talking to him. He's a very, very nice guy. And in fact, his boat had its own postcard. If you want to send a postcard from the boat, it has a picture of it. And I'm talking about it. And I've never seen larger yachts than this. This place is amazing. And he said, you should see people like me when Roger Penske pulls his boat into the harbor.
I've seen his boat.
We're all lined up on the rail of our boats and his boat just dwarfs ours. And he says, that's what real money looks like. And I'm thinking, all these guys see themselves in a hierarchy. And in their world down at the Ocean Reef Club, Penske was the top of an extraordinary hierarchy. And I can't afford, the silverware that he uses on his boat is outside of my budget. So you're right. There will always be someone with more. And even those people who you think have more than they know what to do with have somebody else that they look after. It's amazing.
And the Penske guys line up when, the Oracle boat goes by.
Yes,
or
exactly.
the oligarchs from Russia.
Exactly.
Or Google or whatever. So, there's always somebody with a bigger boat.
A comparison is the thief of joy. Even at that level, comparison is the thief of joy. Anyway, let's get back to the lessons learned here and what I want my listeners to gain from our conversation, what you and I want our listeners to gain from our conversation. So let me remind you who this listener is again, Scott. I think it's an important thing to introduce my guests to my listeners. I work hard to cultivate a type of listener who's action-oriented, who can take these ideas and apply them, utilize them for their own personal as well as their company's benefit. The listener is likely going to be male. 75% are male. He is likely 45 years old or older in a position of influence in their business. It could mean he is the owner. He could be 2nd, 3rd, 4th generation owner, or he could manage a small team of 4 or 5 people. Whatever, he has influence. And there are things some wisdoms that you've gained that I think may be applicable to him. One of which is don't wait too long. I've written something down while you and I were talking, and it's something that I read not long ago. You don't get old and stop moving. You get old when you stop moving. And one of the things you told me you saw on these boats and planes and trains and things like that were walkers. Tell me more about that.
Yeah. So let me step back a little bit. So I was 57 when we got on the boat, and we were going to do it later, but with COVID, we did it. And in hindsight, that was a gift because, I'm down on my hands and knees changing oils and changing things, and stuff hurts. I'm not sure I want to be doing this when I'm 65 or 70. And a lot of us think that's when we're going to start. So what we saw on the water is probably the most heartbreaking experience I saw was a woman on a 38-foot trawler with her husband. But she was doing all the work, and I got to know her a little bit. And this was she and her husband's dream, where her husband came down with Alzheimer's. Oh. Now, she was still doing the trip with him because, she was just that kind of a woman. But, what a miss. And so we saw people that weren't safe out there. And then you talked about the crew option, and we like a crew so we can experience the journey ourselves, and we didn't need all the assistance. Money can solve some of those problems or make it better, but it can't make you younger.
Yeah.
So I think the message that I'm trying to share is, if this is important to you, make sure that you save some time for yourself while you're still healthy, mobile, agile, and have the ability to enjoy some of these things, not just experience some of these things, if that makes sense.
So I'm seeing a number of my friends, a couple of things. I'm 54 years old now. And I need to be careful here because I am not the model of health either, but some significant weight issues, some significant health issues, lifestyle issues, etc. I'm also hearing a number of them in their mid-50s saying, I love my job. I'm going to die at my desk. I can't imagine not doing this. And in my opinion, that is not true. They're saying it in order to gloss over the fact that they've not prepared for whatever's coming next. So they're saying it because they've not saved a dime. It doesn't mean they don't like it, but I don't think anybody wants to die at their desk. What do you think about that?
Well, I think there's probably two tethers that keep us at our desk. One is financial, the people that haven't been able to save and things like that. So, it's really important if you don't have the skill set to do a financial plan, it's really important to find a resource so you can make a knowledgeable and timely decision. The second is that might be tethering us to desk is our network. In other words, our personal worth and our relationships and our social interactions. And I mentioned that it was a lot more transitory and, it was fleeting. For me, I've been away now 12 years, and a lot of people, my Rolodex is pretty dusty. Matter of fact, most people today don't know what a Rolodex is.
That's true.
I recognize that some people have that world, and I would encourage you to really be thoughtful about it and don't let that be an easy scapegoat, because it is a little scary to step out and do this. I mean, you don't have to do it the way I did it. But for me and my wife, what a treat.
Yeah.
And if that's something that's important to your listeners, you got to make it happen. It's not going to happen on its own. And I got to tell you, we've had a lot of friends on the boat because we love to entertain. And at the end of each of these trips, I asked them, I go, could you do this? And I've only had one couple say yes.
Oh, really? What did the ones say no? What did their answers have in common?
Oh, there was, I think being in your community, having a home base, and those things are things that we had to struggle with too. Both of us have living parents, and Sue actually lost her father while we were underway. I had her home within 6 hours, and we were there for him. We were home for 2 weeks, and you have to have those conversations with your spouse if you're going to have a lifestyle change like that. While Sue's father was alive, she flew home every month. We have 2 children. And it's important that we keep connected to them. So we've made some commitments to them to keep that healthy. And we've mentioned the number of friends on the boat and those types of things. And so, we've been able to stay connected to our friendship group and our family. But it's taken planning and it's taken effort.
Yeah. Talk to me about a friendship group. I get this sense that when well, let me give you a different example. My father's 86 years old and is the living, breathing definition of you get old when you stop moving. And he is in constant motion. Pickleball 5 days a week, hunting season, fishing season, all this kind of stuff. But one of the things that I admire the most about what he's done in his retirement, and that's been well over 20 years now, is the friendship groups that he has made and maintained. He has, it's like Norm with Cheers. There are 3 or 4 places he can walk into the door and the people will scream out his name, and they know him and they love him and they continue to invite him, many of whom are now 20 years younger than him because all his 86-year-old friends are unable to do much. So those friendship groups are, I think, a big part of joy, of happiness. And one of the things that I'm working on here in Mobile, Alabama, where I live, is maintaining those friendship groups, knowing that one of these days these people are going to, we're all going to get old together. You left yours. You maintained contact with them, but you got on the boat and said, hey, folks, love you dearly, but we're going. Tell me about that.
Well, I'll tell you a couple things. One is a lot of friendship groups are based around their college experience. That wasn't my case. Mine were around our high school group, believe it or not.
Oh, yeah?
And we have, my wife, Sue, as a matter of fact, getting together with all our high school friends tonight for drinks because we just got back. I have a male group, and then we have the group where we bring them all together. But I'll give you a little tongue-in-cheek answer. It's amazing how many friends you have when you have a boat. And so we have enough room on the boat to sleep 8 people, and we filled it up.
Yeah.
These groups tend to do a trip once a year, and we make that a priority, and we get off the boat and we go. If they're not coming to us, the last 2 years they've been coming to us.
Yeah.
And so that's that. And so, and the other thing I wanted to compliment or say is that for us, I have a friend that lives down in Georgia in a golfing community, and he stepped into a social circle that he could do. On the boat, everybody's your friend. So it's important to find, like you said, your friendship group, your next group, to pull that together.
Scot Hunsaker's on the line with me. We'll be right back after this break.
This is Trey Langus with Transworld Business Advisors. You've worked for years to grow and build your business, and now you're considering an exit strategy. Selling your business can be intimidating and complex. Let our local team at Transworld Business Advisors help you. We are the largest business brokerage in the world, and I will personally and confidentially guide you through this process. I'm Trey Langus. Find me at Transworld Business Advisors or Google my name.
Scot Hunsaker's on the line with me. His company is Ardent Group. We'll talk about that in a moment. He and I met last year at a conference down in Florida. We've stayed in touch since. He allowed me to follow him through an exclusive social media group in their travels up and down the eastern seaboard, down the St. Lawrence River, and Australia, New Zealand. Scot, it sounds like a heck of a trip. Tell me where this whole idea came from. Tell me where the boat is now. Tell me about Australia, New Zealand.
Well, we always like new places and new journeys and new experiences. So when we came down to St. Lawrence to Chicago, our goal next year was to spend the time in Chicago. By the way, Chicago's had a terrible winter, so the boat's in a heated warehouse. We didn't have a home, and we don't like being cold anymore. So we followed the sun and went to Australia and New Zealand for 3 months, and we just got back from that trip. And during that journey, a contract has been placed on the boat. I don't know if it's going to sell yet. Its closing will be in mid-May. But if it does, we still have some things on our to-do list, our dream list. We'll sit down and prioritize those and maybe go out and do them before we settle down. We may end up getting another boat, but not right out of the box probably. But we'll find that next journey. And you may ask why. Well, we've done the Eastern Sea 3 times. We've done the St. Lawrence and the Great Lakes. So it's like we're looking for that next experience, that next new journey. By the way, the name of the boat is Restless Soul, and my wife will tell you I'm the restless one.
Yeah.
So it's always about, what's next. And so we're kind of learning and going on that journey.
What has this footloose and fancy-free lifestyle taught you? After being the CEO of your company, having to be very predictable, reliable, and it's not that you're no longer predictable and reliable, but you had to be there every day. And now it sounds like you kind of, I keep thinking of the Australian term walkabout. You've been on a walkabout for a while.
Well, you use the term footloose and fancy-free, and I respect that and appreciate it. And sometimes I live it. But what we're doing takes a lot of work and planning.
Yeah.
you just can't show up for these things. We planned a year out for the Australia trip. When I'm on the boat, for me to get a slip, I got to plan a year out. So it does take time and work to be able to do those things. So I'm not sure if I answered your question there, but I guess what I'm saying is it's how we spend our time. I'll tell you, one of the biggest gifts I had is that when I ran my company, I was the boss.
Yeah.
And while they liked me and I loved them and cared for them greatly, I was never going to be their friend. Well, after about 12 years, I invited them onto the boat and they forgot I was the boss and I became their friend. And we had an absolute wonderful time. And I learned some things I didn't know back then.
Right.
But the gift was, it was my way of being able to give back to the people that helped me be successful and be able to do the things I'm doing today. And so you don't have to, things are going to change. But you don't have to lose them. You have to nurture them. You have to invest in them, but you don't have to give them up.
Tell me how exit planning, the stuff that Ardent Group works on, may have changed since you exited your business. Tell me how your coaching may have changed since you've become footloose and fancy free. What has this time away taught you? How's it changed you? How's it changed the way you work with your current clients?
Well, the world's changed. I mean, probably the biggest change here was COVID. We've talked about the people that were tethered to the desk and were going to go out in a pine box. I had 4 or 5 clients that had a 5-year retirement plan, and we were going on 15 years of that 5-year retirement plan. It's always 5 years ahead.
Yeah.
And COVID kind of brought that together. And what we saw during COVID is we saw leadership teams stand up because there were some real stresses on the organization. These people really stood up and performed, and the owners go, hey, these guys, maybe they can do it.
Yeah.
And the other thing they realized is we saw some friends pass. And I think there was a little bit of a reality check there. Hey, is this how I want to spend it? So it's interesting. In the last year, 3 of my clients have concluded that transition to the next team and kind of moved on.
Yeah.
I think some of the social things, technology has changed a lot, but the foundational issues of teaching your leadership team the information they need to lead the organization, not just contribute to the organization, is still a critical component of a successful transition, of one that, for me, I could be proud of. Selling to a third party and watching somebody else take it apart wasn't how I wanted to reflect back on the journey. When I look and meet with the team at Councilman Hunsaker today, I am so proud of watching what these people have done, what they've accomplished. They've made it even bigger and more successful than when I was there. And that's the legacy I want, not I don't think you have to leave money on the table to sell to an insider, but just transitioning to a third party and getting gobbled up by another brand and everything you spent your entire career for isn't there anymore wasn't my definition of success.
What's the biggest gap between being an owner and being an employee? As you've tried to counsel your people into becoming owners, have you worked with your owner clients who are trying to do the same with their clients or their employees? What do you think that biggest gap between being an employee and being an owner is?
For me, it was, as an owner, we don't get paid first. We get paid last. In other words, for me, it's all about taking care of the team, nurture and growing the team. And our payoff is when they have the ability to carry it forward and grow and contribute and make it bigger. In other words, I always said I'd rather be a 50% owner of a $10 million company than a 100% owner of a $5 million company. To me, it's just more fun.
Yeah.
So the idea that what the employee gets paid for what they do. An owner gets paid for what everybody does. Uh-huh. And maybe that's a different way of looking at it. And in today's world, it's becoming more of a challenge to teach the employees to worry about the person in the next cubicle or the next Zoom meeting or Teams meeting or whatever it is. Because I think we're struggling to maintain those connections.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be a critical importance. So I would argue that the building blocks are still the same. The tools we use to build those blocks have had to adapt, and they were adapting, but they adapted a whole lot faster because of COVID and some of the social changes and cultural changes going on in our community to create that all for one for all type of attitude to be able to promote these companies to their maximum success for both the firm and the team members.
Do you see people who, I'm going to tie this into something topical right now, and that is March Madness basketball. There are a couple of coaches who are no longer in the tournament because they're new coaches, and it appears to me, am I a sports person? No. Is there a whole lot that I don't know about sports? A whole lot. But it doesn't appear to me these new coaches understand the whole role of being the head coach. They understand the trappings of it, and they're pretty good in a media interview, but it doesn't look like the team has bought into the coach, like the coach is leaving something out. And I have no insider information, but my observing the body language on the sideline is that coach isn't connecting. Those players aren't playing for the coach. They aren't playing for each other. They're playing for themselves. And there's something the previous coach knew that this current coach doesn't know. Have you seen a parallel as people try to transition their business to the next generation or the heir apparent, whatever it may be, where the next owner just misses something that is essential? It's not easily quantifiable, but you can see that they're missing something that's essential to being the owner.
Yeah. I'm an IU guy. I graduated from Indiana University, so my background is Bobby Knight.
Yep.
And he has his own legacy, both good and bad. And, I think going to your question is that it takes time to earn the trust of your team. And it also might be they're not seeking to earn that trust, and that they may view it as transactional and a stepping stone to the next job or the next job. And that happens in business too. Where hired guns come in to, beef up the balance sheet and profit loss statement to flip the company in 2 or 3 years. Yeah. And that's not my space. My space is maybe a little longer term. A lot of them I was a family business, but only about 50% of my clients are family businesses. But a lot of them have these firms are 100 years old. How I qualify one of my clients, does this CEO know every name in the company?
Yeah.
Because if they are, that means they're connected to the team, not just the balance sheet and the income statement. And to me, that's critically important to go back to your rationale about March Madness, or example of March Madness, of creating that all for one for all commitment and having each other's back and maximizing the success of the organization or team. And we've had some real upsets this year. And that mix of leadership and capability and talent and commitment allows maybe a 16th ranked team to take out the top ranked team.
Let me throw something else. We're running up towards the end, but I want to quickly ask you this question. I had a guy on the show not long ago, Richard Jolly. He said the only thing that will make a company competitive in the future, business strategies are no longer competitive. Everybody can get the same information. Everybody can create a very good business plan. The single thing that will make companies competitive in the future in the post-COVID world is workplace culture. Can you quickly react to that?
I 100% agree. And I don't think that's new. I think you can have the world's best strategy, but if you have a toxic culture or the inability to implement that strategy, it's always culture. Culture eats everything else for lunch.
Peter Drucker. That's one of his slides that he used was that very slide.
Yeah, thanks for acknowledging that. Yeah. But yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Scott, real quick, as we're coming to the conclusion, tell people how they can find you. There's a listener out there that's saying he has the feeling for his people that I have for mine, or he had them that I have for mine. I'd love his coaching on my exit plan. How can they find you?
So even with everything going on, you may think, is he still doing his thing? And the answer is yes. I work with about 10 select clients at a time. And if you think I'm a match for you, please give me a call. Happy to chat. My phone number is 314-283-1589. My email is Scot, S-C-O-T, I spell Scott with one T, S-C-O-T @Ardent, A-R-D-E-N-T group.com. The website is also ardentgroup.com as well.
Thank you, Scott. We'll be right back after this break. Finish up with segment 5.
You're in business to make money. At United Bank, we're in business to help you manage it. We offer a full line of financial solutions, including business credit cards, business checking, merchant services, and more. We'll work with you to create a bundle of services that fits your business needs. Learn more about how we can help your business grow at unitedbank.com/CAM. Member FDIC. Credit card subject to credit approval.
Gotta admire the way Scott's gone about his transition, his succession plan. Very methodical. And not only was it methodical, he was building his next business as he was doing it. I don't know whether he was aware of that or not, but the methodology that he discovered, implemented, documented along the way of transitioning his business over to the team at his engineering company. They built swimming pools, not the pool you'd find in the backyard, but swimming competition style level swimming pools at universities and municipalities, kind of big institutional structures, not a pool for a cannonball after work or something like that, something bigger. Anyway, what he did was build this thing in such a way that he was building his next business at the same time of how to go about this transition process, this succession planning process. And now, like I said, he guides a lot of companies across the country, individuals across the country, on how they can go about that same process as well. When I met him, he was giving a speech to a group of boat manufacturers as well as vendors to boat manufacturers on how to go about doing this. The audience was made up primarily of owners of these boating companies, many of which brands you would likely recognize. And he was giving them insight on how to make this transition. His call from Australia was both flattering and pretty cool, that he felt like he had learned something along the way of his trip that might be helpful to my listeners. And I was delighted to get his call about that. One of the things, and I mentioned this just now on the show a moment or two ago, but I am definitely seeing my peer group, and again, I'm 54 years old, claiming that they're going to die in their desk. I love what I do. I'm going to keep doing it till I can do it no longer. And it might be that their social network is wrapped up around their business. One of the things that Scott said. It might be that they love the money and they don't have enough savings. I don't know what it is, but I just have a hard time believing that there are people out there that literally want to do what they're doing for the rest of their life, never stop. Maybe instead of take a 2-week vacation, take a 4-week vacation, or rather than a 4-week vacation, take a 6-week vacation. I am very much looking forward to being able to put the work that I have to do behind me and start to get to do the things that I want to do, that I've always wanted to do, but time has not allowed me to do so. Travel, of course, being one of those things that so many people talk about retirement. When I retire, I'm going to travel and play golf. Well, the one thing I hear about golf is that those that wanted to play golf all the time played golf every day for, let's say, 2, maybe 3 weeks. And then they say, well, that's enough of that. What's next? And realize that much golf wasn't as fun as they had thought it would be and wonder what to do next. But I myself have seen my 86-year-old father retire in good health, stay busy, create networks of new friends and new people and new hobbies. He never played pickleball, and now he's playing 4, maybe 5 times a week. He never was a bike rider. Now he owns a bike, not a racing bike, but kind of a cruiser bike. And he meets up with his friends on a regular basis, and they cruise around different parts of the city together, stopping off along the way to get something to eat or a beer at the bar that they go past, et cetera. And I look at that and I think, now that's kind of what I hope it will be like. 1 is good health, 2 is financial security, and 3 is groups of friends doing things, being active together. And Scott seems to have found that. His was facilitated by a transition out of ownership of his business. My father's was facilitated simply by a traditional, normal retirement as he stepped out and had done the right things along the way. And that's kind of what I'm looking for myself. And boy, I see friends and colleagues my age not taking care of their health, thinking, oh, I hope they don't regret this. There is nothing wrong with another slice of pizza. But at some point, you got to say, maybe this is too much. And I am not preparing myself for this inevitable next chapter that I want to be able to benefit. All right, that's enough of the soapbox. I can get on a soapbox, man. Do I love a soapbox? I do love a soapbox. Time to wrap it up for this week. Scott was a great guest. You can find him at ardentgroup.com. The show is produced by John Thompson with Ion Digital. Every time I say that is the day that he's not drinking beer on the north side of Horn Island in the beautiful, warm blue waters of Mississippi Sound. Have another show next week. Have a good week, everybody.